Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're putting on our corporate detective hats. We are diving deep into Byrna Technologies' latest SEC filing to uncover the real story behind their financials. If you follow the less lethal defense sector, you already know Byrna is a pretty fascinating player. But man, their latest quarter? It's an absolute wild ride of restructuring, write-downs, and massive strategic pivots. Okay, let's dive right into this.
We're looking straight at the official Form 10Q document for the quarter ended May 31st, 2026. This is the raw data right here. Our goal today is to slice through all that dense, jargon-heavy legal speak and unpack the actual strategic reality hidden inside. We aren't just going to look at the numbers. We're going to figure out the real-world operational decisions that created them.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit the top-line shock, the operational pivot, the financial fallout, channels and consumers, international bets, and wrap up with looking ahead. We're going to map out exactly how this defense technology company shifted from a highly profitable quarter a year ago to a massive net loss today.
All right, Section 1, the top-line shock. So, right when you crack open this 10Q, the very first thing that hits the income statement is a massive red number. For the 3 months ending May 31st, 2026, Byrna reported a staggering net loss of just over $10 million. I mean, wow. That's not a minor dip. That is a serious cratering on the balance sheet for a single quarter. And the contrast is just stark. In the exact same quarter last year, they actually posted a very healthy $2.4 million profit. Fast forward to this year, and not only did they swing to a $10 million loss, but their top-line revenue completely dropped off a cliff, going from $28.5 million down to just $16.3 million. So you've got to ask yourself, what exactly caused this sudden multi-million-dollar financial bleed? Look, a drop like this doesn't just happen by accident. It's definitely not a rounding error. We really have to investigate the specific real-world choices and structural changes that caused this absolute ocean of red ink.
Which brings us to Section 2, the operational pivot.
To understand the numbers, we have to look at the physical reality of the company. Essentially, they had what you'd call a kitchen sink quarter, where they took all their bitter medicine at once. Byrna has been rapidly changing its physical footprint worldwide. Back in Q3 of 2025, they ceased manufacturing in South Africa. Then, in March 2025, they set up a Canadian subsidiary. And finally, the really big one, in May 2026, they made the massive decision to permanently stop making ammunition at their Fort Wayne, Indiana facility.
By closing up these factories and shifting strategies, they're fundamentally altering their DNA. Take that Canadian subsidiary, for instance. They aren't building a new factory there. Instead, they're using a third-party logistics provider. They are aggressively shedding all that heavy manufacturing weight to stabilize their footprint long-term. Basically, they're getting out of making their own ammo in Fort Wayne and stepping entirely away from South African manufacturing.
Let's look at what that actually cost them in Section 3, the financial fallout.
Now, as you might guess, shutting down factories is incredibly expensive in the short term. The bridge between closing a physical factory and a $10 million loss on a spreadsheet comes down to an accounting mechanism called an inventory write-down. See, when you close a factory, all those raw materials and half-finished goods sitting on the floor suddenly become worthless. You can't sell them, so you literally have to erase their value from your books.
And the sheer scale of this write-down is just staggering. Because of these strategic closures, Byrna had to take a really painful $5.9 million hit on their inventory this quarter. That is $5.9 million of value simply wiped off the books. It flows right into their cost of goods sold and absolutely tanks their gross profit. If we do a quick autopsy on that $5.9 million hit, we can see exactly where it came from. $3.6 million is tied directly to the raw materials and finished goods from those closed Fort Wayne ammo lines. The other $2.2 million? That comes mostly from launcher components they strategically decided to scrap, along with a reserve for items facing declining market demand. It's basically a massive, multi-million-dollar spring cleaning of their warehouses. But here is where things get truly fascinating. Even with these massive write-downs, their operating expenses stayed high. In fact, their quarterly advertising costs actually jumped up to $5 million. Think about that for a second. Revenue dropped by over $12 million compared to last year. They're actively closing factories, and yet they're still pumping $5 million into ad spend. They're making a huge bet that they can market their way right through this transition.
Moving on to Section 4, Channels and Consumers. So with traditional manufacturing taking a hit and ad spend rising to $5 million, where are they actually bringing in the cash? Well, the absolute lifeblood of the company right now is their direct-to-consumer e-commerce. Their online channels pulled in roughly $11 million this quarter. Compare that to the wholesale side, dealers and distributors, which only brought in about $5.6 million. It's pretty clear Byrna is rapidly morphing into a direct-to-consumer digital marketing engine rather than a traditional wholesale manufacturer.
This also brings up some incredibly complex accounting behind those consumer sales. For ex-work shipping, Byrna recognizes the revenue the exact moment a product is packed and loaded onto a carrier's trailer. Boom, revenue is booked. But to keep consumer confidence high, they offer a 14-day money-back guarantee. That means they can't actually keep all that recognized revenue. They have to carefully estimate reserves for the returns that will inevitably come back. It's a really delicate balancing act of aggressive revenue recognition paired with cautious return estimates.
Next up, Section 5, International Bets.
Now, Byrna isn't just banking on direct-to-consumer sales in the U.S. They've got some intricate international bets that are impacting their balance sheet in some pretty unusual ways. Take South America, for example. Last year, they inked an exclusive agreement for Byrna LATAM to manufacture the SD launcher down there in exchange for production royalties. Sounds like a sweet passive income stream, right?
Well, not exactly. This quarter, Byrna actually posted a negative $282,000 royalty revenue figure. I mean, you definitely do not see negative revenue every day. How in the world does a company actually lose revenue on a royalty agreement?
It turns out this bizarre negative revenue was just a financial housekeeping mechanism, an accounting true-up. Essentially, they had to reverse royalties they'd previously recorded. Why? Because Byrna LATAM came back with updated reporting showing lower historical production numbers than they initially stated. Byrna had been estimating royalties based on the old data. When the true, lower numbers finally came in, Byrna had to deduct that over-accrued amount from this quarter's revenue. Just a stark reminder of how complex international licensing can get.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, Looking Ahead. So, what's the ultimate survival plan here? After a massive $5.9 million inventory write-down, factory closures, and some wacky negative revenue from South America, management's roadmap relies heavily on their current liquidity. They've got $9.4 million in cash sitting in the bank, plus access to $20 million in available credit if things get tight. Their strategy is to leverage this financial buffer to sustain that massive advertising spend, basically betting the farm that their e-commerce engine can drive enough demand to weather this huge restructuring phase.
Ultimately, as their own management bluntly states right there in the filing, survival comes down to execution. Quote, "The company's future results will depend on its ability to continue generating sufficient revenue to fund operating expenses and to effectively market its products." They've ripped off the Band-Aid, taken the financial hit, and streamlined operations. So the big question we're left with is this: can Byrna successfully market its way out of this painful operational pivot, or is shedding their manufacturing roots a risk that'll permanently change the trajectory of the company? Keep a close eye on their direct-to-consumer numbers next quarter, because that is exactly where this battle will be won or lost. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.